Today, we are so grateful to have Chris and Jenny Shell here. Huge supporters of GIVE, amazing people in our community, and just awesome human beings. So we are glad to have you here. Rachel, any?
Nope, I think that's it. Join the Facebook group if you haven't. We post announcements and the newsletter and stuff in there. So if there's any last minute quick communication that we need to have, that's one of the places that it will be. So if you haven't joined that yet, go ahead and do that.
And I should have asked about the matching grants, but I'm a little bit shell shocked with the matching grants right now because they're coming in like crazy, really fast, hot and furious. Are we doing okay with our matching grants? Everybody doing good? Okay.
Yeah, let us know if there's anything we can do to help.
Yeah, just keep us in the loop. We're here to help.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, without further ado, here they are.
So we're, as Courtney already said, we're Jenny and Chris with the Design Rangers. We have been in business for, this is our 15th year. I was born in Colorado Springs. Chris was born in Delaware, but moved here when he was 1.
I'll make a status, I'll get in trouble.
One thing I do want to say is that we'll be providing the deck to you as a PDF. So if you're worried about catching in everything, don't be worried because you'll get it all soon. Also, the deck will be really helpful when you're listening or after you've listened to Lauren and Lauren, because both of their presentations tie in really well with ours. So telling your story, we talked about that some, and then also social media, we'll be talking about that a lot because it's Gen Z. What else am I talking about? Oh, we love nonprofits. We have been associated with GIVE longer than I can remember. It's probably been 10, maybe 11, 12 years. How long has GIVE been around, Tim?
12.
Okay, maybe 11.
Probably 11.
We worked with a lot of nonprofits locally. We accidentally started a nonprofit when the Waldo Canyon fire broke out. We had a good friend of ours who said, "Hey, let's design a couple T-shirts. We'll print them on the weekend. Maybe we'll make like $3,000 and we'll donate all of the proceeds to just people who are helping other people with the impact of the fire." We ended up raising $1 million. We were able to donate, $500,000 of that back to the community. So that was our goal, was to not spend more than 50% in terms of printing, buying the T-shirts, shipping. It was a whole lesson in running a nonprofit. So we appreciate, we really appreciate all you're doing because we know it's hard work. So today we're going to be talking about Philanthro Kids, also known as Generation Z. They are the future of giving. And so we're hoping to just, teach you a little bit about how you can connect with them.
So who here has either Gen Z kids or Gen Z grandkids or knows Gen Z pretty well? Anybody? Okay.
Maybe give the definition of Gen Z.
Gen Z is technically 25 and under. There is some debate about this. We'll get into this in a minute, but like our 26-year-old who is technically millennial would rather be qualified as Gen Z. So on that cutoff line, there is some question mark, but basically 25 and under is Gen Z. So the current generation of kids, basically. Yes, of course. And I can't see hands going up online, but no, some one hand would have. So Gen Z, just a little bit about them. They are willing to change anything and everything, especially to get a greater impact. So for them, the rules of how philanthropy is worked, the rules of how the world works are a little bit bendable because they come up in an age where they can pretty much get access to whatever they need. They can rally together. They've been part of technology and information from the day they were born. This is what Gen Z probably looks like for most of you seeing. Anybody who has Gen Z kids, this is typically what you see.
But I see the whole world like that.
They see the whole world like that. Yeah, they do. Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
But especially Gen Z, you're gonna see like this while they're talking and maybe a laptop open and maybe a TV on as well. So, but this is, obviously just a stock photo, but a good representation of Gen Z. They're a very diverse generation. They're a very connected generation. and they're probably talking to each other on their phones right here, right next to each other. So getting back to the demo, it is 25 and younger, born 1997. Some stats say 1998, but generally 25 and under. They're a very diverse generation ethnically. So 52% of Gen Zers are not Hispanic whites compared to, I think it's 46, 47% the generation before. They make up 32% of the global population, 27% of US population. So there's a lot of them. The realities of this generation, they are the COVID kids. So we gave this presentation back in 2020, the first time, right, as the pandemic was really kicking into gear. And it's, as at least of right now, going to be one of the defining moments of their generation, especially kids coming up through any kind of school through this time. They're young enough that they do not remember or were not born for 9/11. So our youngest Claire was born in 2003. So 9/11 isn't really a thing that's a defining moment like it is for a lot of us. In terms of trust, healthcare workers, social media influencers, and technology companies strike stronger trust in them than news outlets, government, or traditional experts. So they tend to be very much skeptical of anybody trying to tell them what things are unless those people are like them. So because they've lived through so much, including a couple of recessions, civil unrest, a lot of violence, climate change, social injustice, for them, social change isn't something that is a later or something that is a luxury to them. Social change is something that they are very active in and is a must. They're never not connected. So we talked about just even coming into the library, that it used to be we'd have to come here to try to figure out how to do things or what something was, or tune into the radio for a long time to wait to tape your favorite song. They've always had instant access to everything. Everything is just a tap away. On average, 9 hours in front of a screen is what they're spending. Close to an hour a day on Instagram alone.
How do you spend 9 hours a day in front of a screen?
You'd be surprised.
I guess
probably.
during online school.
So thanks to Fortnite.
Thank you for being here as our panel.
We have one amongst us.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, I was not raised as a Gen Z though, because I know that like the stereo with waiting for your favorite song on the radio. My mom's a school teacher, so I had to use the dictionary to look things up. And I didn't get my first phone, even then it was a Nokia, until middle school. So wasn't raised like that one, but I do understand some of them. So
Now, I will say, to be fair, as a Gen Xer, the stat was we were spending 8 hours in front of a television. So screens in general have been a thing, but I think the use of multiple screens, checking in, texting, YouTube, online classes, everything to do with it. 9 hours can go pretty quick.
distractions.
And they are the streaming generation. So speaking of TV, 7 out of 10 ranked YouTube is the second most common way for them to learn about new brands and products, Instagram being number 1. But YouTube to them is the library, is school, is the way for them to learn about things. So most of them have access and get on YouTube far more than they do to cable TV.
Is that being streamed now with TikTok?
Yes, so TikTok is climbing up there. TikTok is still behind Instagram in terms of ranking. We'll talk about social media in a little bit here. So they
And these will be great questions for Lauren Hug as well on September 30th. I wouldn't call us the experts in social media. We've done a lot of research for this presentation, but I bet Lauren is going to know some of those, answers and more details on them.
Yeah. So the latest stats we pulled is that Instagram is still ahead of TikTok, but not by a lot. We talked about social justice a little bit. So this generation really embraces diversity and inclusion, and they support social movements and rights and equality and all of that, as they should, but they are much more active and outspoken about it. They've been marketed to since they came out of the womb, which means they have a great BS meter. They can tell when something is fake. They can tell when somebody's trying to pander to them. So they will check to make sure you're practicing what you preach, and we'll talk about that in a minute as well. Creative and quirky a lot of times is what this generation is described as, and that definitely describes our daughter. They're into lots of different things. They don't really want to be defined by labels or social norms, and they really think that, I think the stat is 57% of them think that their hobbies and a professional career can and should overlap. They do create connection, and right back to the phone, people think sometimes that's not connection. To them, that is connection, but they're looking for a relationship, not a transaction. So with brands that they interact with, whether it's consumer brands or nonprofits or anything else, they really want a connection and a conversation. They don't want to just have a transaction or a donation. Right now, they are most likely to support causes around environment and wildlife, art, culture, humanities, and youth development. And they are very self-aware in their part in the world. So they know that they are responsible, they feel responsible, thanks to what they would call boomers and Gen Xers, that it's all in their hands to make this work out and to make sure that future generations have a place to be. So just a couple of interesting stats around them. Some of them probably not so surprising, some of them maybe a little surprising. Most of them have a smartphone or have access to a smartphone. We thought this was interesting at 50%, 57% do research nonprofits before donating. So you think with a short attention span, they're just like, whatever, but they will go and do the research to see what the cause is about, what the makeup of the board is like, you name it, they will dig into it. 60%, we talked about YouTube, checking in on YouTube at least once a day. 85% of them are using social media channels to learn about things. Visiting a video platform, streaming platform outside of YouTube. So there are things like not Twitch, Discord, other streaming platforms out there for video games and things that they're using as well, and they're checking into those 97% of the time. And most of them, again, back to challenging things, say that forms and profiles should include additional gender options than just
Question.
Yeah.
So the stat about donating to nonprofits, if they're 25 and under, they probably don't have a lot of financial resources to make large donations.
Correct. Yeah, so they're donating in smaller amounts for sure.
10, 20.
They are active, and we'll talk about that a little bit too. They're willing to give multiple times, and they are willing to give their time or physical resources as well. But again, they don't give that away easily. They want to make sure that it's a cause that they actually believe in, that resonates with them. They're less likely to just say, "Oh, okay, it seems like they're doing good. Here's $10." So the other thing that's interesting for nonprofits, and this is a little bit sometimes of a scary stat, but they see that giving to nonprofits is one of only a couple of options and maybe not the best one to make an impact and change things. So again, they will self-rally. We'll talk about this too. But a lot of times again, that skepticism, they don't always think nonprofits is the best way to get things done. They don't necessarily understand how it works. They may see that there's confusion around it. So they will give to nonprofits, but to them, that's just one way to do good. In terms of what people are saying out there, industry leaders, so David Kelly of Video Labs, company that invented lots of things, including the first Apple mouse and toothbrushes and all of these kind of crazy things that are designed.
Not just toothbrushes, but toothbrushes with
Toothbrushes
like the
grippy
rubber grip.
handles. A lot of things that you would see out there that you use every day that you have no idea Idea Labs has created. But he's very excited about Gen Z and especially how much they care about social practice and social good, and you'll see that come up again and again and again. So brands out there, especially consumer brands, really, if they're not doing some kind of social good impact, Gen Z not that interested. So talking a little bit about the faces of Gen Z.
So this is Greta Thunberg. She's 19. I would assume most of you have seen her face. So she is a climate change activist and the author of No One Is Too Small to Make a Difference. In September of 2019, an estimated 4 million people participated in her global climate strike. And she also has a documentary on Hulu called I Am Greta. Highly recommended. It's really inspiring.
And I think Greta is an interesting example of somebody that you wouldn't necessarily think of as like a social media influencer. She's not real peppy. She's a little bit awkward, and that, that's part of who she is. That's not going to stop her from getting out there and making a change.
And it's really something that Gen Z rallies around is they, we have found this with our daughter, like they really embrace that, like we said, like creative and quirkiness. They aren't as much as like millennials are looking for that, super perfect Instagram kind of life. Gen Z really celebrates and embraces the quirkiness in people. So this is Aiden Cone Murphy. I just found Aiden on the internet a couple of days ago, but Aiden's 18. He has almost 305,000 TikTok followers. He's the founder and executive director of Gen Z for Change. So they are a nonprofit advocacy organization. They use social media to promote civil discourse and political action among members of Gen Z. Aiden started out as Biden for Change. He kind of founded that organization and then moved into Gen Z for Change. He's kind of started a coalition of over 500 content creators. Working together, they have about 540 million followers, and they receive 1.5 billion monthly views on social media. So Aiden is out there to change the world. Obviously, he has the numbers behind him. He has the coalition of other Gen Zers behind him. And I mean, I think this, this shows you the type of thing that Gen Z is really interested in doing. They're out there to change the world.
And he embodies to this idea we'll talk a lot about. He's very humorous, so a lot of his posts are just silly, quirky, completely humorous, non-activist things, but then also does some very serious advocate work as well. So that blend of being able to jump back and forth between something that's very fun and quirky and humorous and something very serious is a natural.
So this is Malala. I probably don't need to tell you about her either. Malala's 24 now. She's one of the most outspoken advocates for education and equality, especially amongst girls. She won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2014 and just declared that this was a call to humanity regarding the risk to women's rights and girls' education in Afghanistan under the Taliban.
So Joshua Wong, really out there right now for being very much pro-democracy in Hong Kong, and really, again, going back to this generation, that the risks that they face, he's been jailed several times already, once for 2 months, once for 4 months, and right now it's facing potentially 9 years of jail time, but still rallying people around the cause that he believes strongly in and willing to put himself out there continually, no matter what, to keep doing that. So somebody who, again, Gen Z is like, we're not going to wait for somebody else to solve this. We're going to get out there and do it ourselves, even if it means putting ourselves potentially in harm's way.
And he also was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize in 2018.
So Amanda Gorman, poet, right? Language, 24 years old, self-described wordsmith, and she was the youngest inaugural poet in U.S. history. And since then has gone on again to become a face of activism, to rally people around her, and I think really get people inspired with her words and her elegance around the way that she approaches the world. And then this is our daughter. This is Claire. So Claire is 19, and she is currently a physics major, rides a unicycle, head of the diversity, equity, inclusivity group and committee chair in her school in New Mexico. A HEMA participant. So HEMA is historical European martial arts. So this is long swords in full gear. She's had 5 stitches in her head from this
They were
before.
staples.
Staples, sorry, not stitches. So Claire is transgender and buys a lot of merchandise that supports real causes and diverse organizations. So to us, Claire is the epitome of a Gen Z. She embraces her uniqueness. She's out there and she's outspoken. She has lots of different interests, and
She's creative and quirky. And she would love for me to say that about her. If we pass this by her, what we were going to say, and she really embraces being creative and quirky.
So this is Claire. A couple days ago sent us a video. She used her refund check money to get an electric unicycle. So you can see that down there between her feet that she's riding. So just to give you an idea about that screen time and what's happening, again, Claire has logged to date 1,200 hours on the video game Destiny. A fact that she's very proud of and makes us just kind of rub our heads sometimes. But at the same time, she volunteered one summer 295 hours with Cheyenne Mountain School, right? So there is this.
Which when I broke it down for the amount of time she had off of school from the summer, it was nearly 40-hour weeks the entire summer that she was volunteering at the zoo.
Yeah. Rode this new unicycle that she just got nine days ago. She's got an app that tells her how much she's ridden. It's 64 miles already on the campus in Socorro, New Mexico. And again, she's been involved since its inception as well. We gave the kids money when they were little to put towards causes. They got to look through the book.
Sorry
and
about that,
they
Give, only give,
Sorry.
give. That was left over from last year.
So there's 5 key things that we think, there's a lot of things you should know about Gen Z, but we've broken it down into 5 key things you should know about Gen Z, including what to do about it and what you can do in your campaign to support it. So meet me in the metaverse. Not quite yet. The metaverse is still young in its infancy, and we'll see what really happens with it. But this is just to say that Gen Z is very online in nature, and this is where most of their first interactions with you or with anybody else will happen. So their lines are blurry, and it's become even more blurry since COVID. So they skip back and forth between online and offline, seamlessly between physical and virtual interactions. And that has only increased since things like virtual school and other things have happened. To them, this idea of there's meeting in real life and then there's an online world, there's no difference to them. Now, there is a difference, obviously, that they've realized it, emotional connections and certain other things, but to them, texting or getting on a Discord stream or Instagram chat, it's the same thing as we used to do when we get on the phone or meet somebody at the mall or do anything else. To them, it's all the same. And they have friends, Claire has friends all over the globe. Social media, that's where you can find them most of the time. That's how they're going to scout for new products. And they spend about 3 hours a day of that 9 hours on social media platforms. They put it all out on the table. So this idea of authenticity, of transparency, and what you believe in, they want to know that right away. Who are you and who are you actually? Not just who do you want me to think you are, but what's behind the scenes and how does that work? They understand the power of their own voice, but you know, as we talked about before, they can rally a lot of people around their cause very quickly, and without any thought about how that's going to work out. They just do it. But entertainment's also important. So 72% of Gen Z is on the internet mainly for entertainment purposes, and as the mental health crisis keeps kind of going up, also to cheer themselves up, and that can be through videos, memes, apps, message boards. That's the main reason that they're online, is for entertainment. In terms of their donation preferences, again, it's usually going to be digital or it's going to be physical assets. They're not typically at events given in person necessarily, but they are willing to give physical assets in terms of their donations. And they are likely to offset processing costs by making online donations. We thought that was an interesting stat. They are really willing to say, we understand that there's costs that go behind this. We understand how that works. They're getting very educated in terms of knowing what's going on behind the scenes. So in terms of keeping things simple, 33% of donors prefer to give in response to social media channels, 29% prefer to give via text messages, and the simpler the better. So texting is the most popular way for them to text a giver. It's just quick, it's easy. Once they're ready, they don't necessarily want to go here and go there, then go to a donation form and fill something out. If it can be quick, then it's better. And they are starting to use digital currency. All that Bitcoin we all know is, who knows what else is going to happen with digital currency, but they are using that to pay, and most likely they're going to do that. So what can we do to put this into action?
So ideally, you're going to clearly and quickly communicate who you are, what you believe, and how you're taking action. Again, as much as Gen Z is on the internet, they need quick information, not long drawn out, you're not getting to the point, just quick. We ask that you meet them where they are. Gen Z really connects best through posts and viewing videos, social media, and also by purchasing products. So if you can think of products that you might be able to create that they could buy, it was a lot like wildfire tees. People wanted to support the wildfire relief efforts, and our t-shirts just kind of made a way for them to have something that showed they donated, but also doing good, and then being able to wear the shirt to kind of stay on purpose as well. You can also piggyback on platforms. So TikTok has TikTok for Good. We double check these links. They're still up and running, totally live. And then if you want to learn more about texting to give, QGive has an interesting blog about how they can help support that.
So Lauren will get into social media, but again, most of the social media platforms are trying to help organizations and nonprofits and for-profits obviously to use their platform. So
right.
If you have questions, they usually have entire sites dedicated to case studies and stories and ways to get things set up, and then those kind of things if you take a look.
So in terms of texting tips, we'd ask that you give supporters the option to opt in to outbound text message lists and then send them periodic updates and urgent appeals. I don't know that Gen Z are the people that you want to be sending your email newsletter to once a month, twice a month. Claire has like 12,000 unread emails in her email account. That makes me very anxious, but yeah, texting was we found that again and again in the information that if you can text some kind of, just quick updated information with what your nonprofit is doing, they prefer to see it that way. In terms of video, think about ways to include YouTube or other videos throughout your organization programs. Again, through texting, can you just send them a YouTube link? They would love to watch your video. And then just look outside of nonprofits and what nonprofits are doing. Look at brands that Gen Z really loves, and just see what they're doing, how they're operating, how they're engaging, and then take some tips from that. We're big advocates of not just looking inside your same little bubble, but getting outside. We're going to profile a couple of the brands that are way outside of the nonprofit space, but that are really doing well at connecting with Gen Z.
Yeah, we tend to think that people spend too long looking at each other, and then everybody sounds the same, looks the same, and does the same thing, instead of saying, well, what are the people that we already know or industry leaders working with Gen Z, what did they do? You're going to learn a lot more there. So number 2 is real people, real issues, and total transparency. So Gen Z, it's not just that they like honesty and authenticity, they expect it, they demand it. So as Jenny said, as opposed to millennials who really want to see this kind of doctored up, perfect Photoshop lifestyle, Gen Z wants to see people like them, and they want it to be raw and unfiltered when possible. They'll be able to tell if it's fake, they know it's fake, and they hate when it's fake. So trying to be as real as possible, trying to avoid what we talked about, Jenny talked about in the last action, about taking a stand and being clear. Avoid jargon, avoid just kind of saying these flowery language. They just really want to know what you're doing and how you're doing it. We talked about the quirkiness, the creative. They embrace that uniqueness. They embrace organizations who help foster that uniqueness in them. We'll talk a little bit about that in some of the case studies, but again, they want people who appreciate that they are unique, they have creative ideas, and foster those, not just kind of try to make everybody the same. And they will check to see if there's an extension of their values, and if you practice what you preach. So like I said, they will look and see, well, okay, you say you're diverse, what's your board makeup? If your board makeup is all old white guys, they're going to be like, no, you're not. You're just trying to pander to me and say that you're diverse. And we talk about Nike here in a minute. Again, they really worked hard to try to make sure their makeup actually fits the audience that they're trying to talk to. As we talked about with Claire, there's a challenging gender norms. So they're most likely to know someone that's uses gender neutral pronouns, and more likely to say that forms should offer gender options and other things. They don't want to be, again, tied down to labels that are challenging convention when and where possible. Embracing those differences. So they're progressive, pro-government, but they see diversity as a good thing. And that we're all in this together at a global scale, that it's not necessarily the United States or anybody else is superior to somebody else. And we talked about them doing their homework, so they will check on things and check on nonprofits to make sure that, are you spending the money, are you using it, is it actually getting to the people it's supposed to get to? So embracing the ecosystem is important. I think working with partners, communities, for-profits, nonprofits, and Gen Z. So again, that power of the collective, they like seeing that power of, okay, how are you working with others to make this happen? Not just trying to do it on your own. I think showing, not telling. So the less words, the better, but the more you can show in action. So are you showing videos or photos of the people, of the impact, of diversity? And again, are those real, not fake? And explaining that impact in terms of where the money goes with real world examples is super critical. So putting that into action for you.
Okay, so just to recap, we would like you to put real people in real scenarios talking about real issues. Again, this is down, dirty, raw, real life. That's how you connect with the Gen Zer. Talk about what makes you different. honestly talk about the uniqueness and just show them how you live by those values. One quote that was very interesting, and this was a quote from some research that one of our clients, oh, you know what, it was actually Give a couple of years ago did a survey to donors who were like in that, young donors group. And I believe one of the feedback lines was, I give to a plan, not a plea. That's Barb, that's right. But I think that's a really good quote, like, they would rather know what your plan is than just, begging for their money. Just really try to make what you're doing tangible in terms of the effect you'll have on the community. So if it works for your nonprofit, try to think of unique opportunities for Gen Z. It doesn't have, I would not count on them always for a lot of money, but they're really interested in donating their time. I think it's also a really good way for people who maybe don't have a lot of work experience to, if you have a specific job that you need done, it could be done on a volunteer basis, and then you could write them, a review that they could pass on to a recommendation for a possible employer. So those are the kind of opportunities that are unique that nonprofits can give the Gen Z community. And then also, just invite them to, into your nonprofit. Like, what do you need from us? What would help us to, to connect with the community? Just how do you start a conversation with them so you can kind of gain some information about, just connecting better.
So the third thing you need to know is that they're mobilizing with or without you. So because they're always connected, and I do mean always connected, which means there's always some sort of message coming through or going out from them, they're primed to mobilize with their peers and very quickly if necessary. And the Black Lives Matters protests were proof of that they were able to very, very quickly rally, get people behind it, get out there in person or online and get like-minded people together. They know there's power in that collective, and that geography and time zones aren't as important as they used to be. So once again, they can rally people all around the world if they want to. And they know that probably if we get into the 6 degrees of separation, they're going to know somebody pretty quickly in 2 degrees of separation that can help them to get something done or to get them something that they need to know. So back to this idea of the okay boomer phrase, they feel like they've inherited a giant mess in this world, and that they're not going to wait around for someone else to fix it. They have to be active in being part of the solution. However, they do want allies, right? So they want to deliver on this promise of purpose, and they want their, if possible, their impact to be amplified. So they already see, even at a young age, a third of them see this philanthropic support as part of their legacy, hopefully. So they're already talking about legacy, potentially in their teenage years. They are self-sufficient, so they know how to find that information and resources or just about anything without needing to tap into other experts or other people. Again, back to YouTube, you want to figure out how to do it, it's probably not it. And speaking of YouTube, they're video VIP, so they are not afraid, as Claire did, to get on camera, talk about what they're doing, how they're doing it. They're not camera shy, so they'll get right out there in front of the camera and talk about what is important.
So our action for this would be to let Gen Z lead the way, ask them how they'd like to engage with your nonprofit, and just make space, like I said, for creative volunteering and fundraising opportunities. We'd also ask that you try to create an ecosystem, openly engage with other nonprofits, for-profits, micro-influencers, and out-of-the-box partners. I think they would like to see that you also are being creative and quirky, and how are you, thinking out of the box in terms of just getting different partners and solutions together.
And that word micro-influencers, by the way, so influencers, you probably know, are people that have large followings of crowds of people that follow them. A micro-influencer would typically have a very small group of people, very passionate people that follow them in a very specific subject, right? So if you're talking about, I don't know, let's just say chihuahuas in Colorado Springs that dress up for Comic-Con or something, right? That might be a micro influencer that, believe it or not, there is a niche around that and people that do that. And somebody who probably has followers that are very passionate that you can tap into to talk about your organization.
So not like I don't like to be told what to do. Gen Z really doesn't like to be told what to do. You know, we would ask that you try to be an ally and a partner, not an authority. Also create opportunities for peer-to-peer campaigns. I think that's a really great way to think of fundraising. If you can, you know, just connect with somebody that's in the Gen Z community and have them speak to, you know, their friends about their passion for what you're doing. It probably connects with the community, you know, much easier than you trying to pitch to all those people. So just think of ways to make those peer-to-peer campaigns happen.
And most donation platforms have some kind of peer-to-peer giving now too. And
So you can also test your message by piloting an idea for engaging younger audiences. You can test different messages, and then you know, just prioritize recruiting young volunteers for an upcoming event. I think that's really important, is that Gen Z sees within your nonprofit, you know, people who are in their age group, because that's just a, you know, a way to show that you're doing your best to connect with them. You want them to join. You know, you're looking for them to be a part of your mission.
And again, Lauren can talk about this, but social media, that's one of the great things. You can put a lot of messages and it will tell you what's working and what's not working. So it's okay to get out there and just start testing the waters, not waiting for the perfect time, the perfect space. Just try a bunch of different things and see what resonates and what maybe doesn't. So storytelling will be the next presentation that you will see, but telling the full story is really important, and being good storytellers is something that's really important at Design Rangers. It's actually, for us, the most important thing when people work with us to talk about any projects, a website or a campaign or anything. The first thing we lead with is, okay, what's the story? It has to have a real, authentic, impactful story. So everybody relates to stories. It's the oldest form of marketing. But Gen Z especially, this is how they find people that share their beliefs, is through inspiring stories or stories of something that's happening. And that's who they're going to decide who they want to rally behind. So what that means for you is you need to be able to tell your unique story. Again, don't try to tell necessarily the story of somebody else, even the story of potentially the people you're trying to help. You want to tell your story. What are your values? And then you want to have the people you're helping tell their story. So a lot of it is about getting the actual people to tell their stories at any given time. And that's the only really way to break through all of the noise and the short attention spans. And back to this idea of no filter, you'll see a lot of repeated information in here, but that's because we think it's important that you need to really be able to represent the people, causes, and communities that are going to be impacted, show them who are they, and what do they look, sound, and act like. So I think spontaneous, right? This is a group that is very spontaneous in terms of their giving. They may not have a lot to give, but they will give in a second if they feel like something really resonates with them. So just a simple event or story that was shared with them sometimes will get them to go directly and text a donate, or to tell their friends about it, or to get involved in an event. They do want to see themselves in what's happening, right? So there's this idea of inclusivity. So hopefully they can see a little bit of themselves in the story. And this is back to what we tell people, is that, believe it or not, not everybody is your audience. Your audience, potentially you want the people who are going to love and be a part of what you're doing. So, you know, it's okay to say if you don't necessarily have people that look like Gen Z right now, they may not be your audience yet. But if you do have those people involved, you want to show them and you want to show the diversity of those people. And then Gen Z, as we talked about, they want to be part of the story. So they're not so interested in saying, hey, you're doing great work out there. Here's money, go do that work. They want to know, how am I part of this story? How do I get to be part of this narrative? How does this get to be part of something that I can feel good about? So spelling it out, making sure that you're articulating how you're making the world a better place, not just that that's your ambition, but how are you doing it? Back to that plan, not a plea. And make sure that they feel like they're in it with you. How can they stand side by side? Not you're up here, they're down here. If possible, let them tell their stories. So if they're a donor or if they have been involved in the organization, great, get them to tell their story. Why did they become involved? How did they become involved? What's important to them? So they're already using, for those of you that are on Instagram, Snapchat, or TikTok, right? Stories have become the big things. Yes, you can post static pictures, but this idea of stories, whether it's video or whether it's a series of photos that run together with some text over it, they're already doing that. And so 64 and 52% respectively are using Instagram and Snapchat on a daily basis. Again, TikTok is right behind that. I want to say TikTok is 47%. And these are storytelling acts, right, that show the world how they want to be seen. It's one of the reasons they don't love Facebook, because Facebook doesn't allow this just kind of, well, what's the raw story? Facebook is a lot of words and a lot of talking back and forth and a lot of just throwing out random things. And then I think
Also,
it's,
the grandparents are on there
well,
and their parents.
yes, the people they don't want to talk to necessarily. And I think real-time communication is very important. So it's really better as a nonprofit to get authentic, timely stories out the door. Think live stream almost than it is to overcreate and overproduce. So, you know, if it's no longer timely, if you're putting together sort of something for weeks or a month before you put it out the door, you may have missed your window. So it's better to just get short, quick, get it out the door, see what resonates. And then if you need to put something of higher production value together, do that. But, you know, this is a generation, again, who pick up the phone anytime, click, click, post it. And that's what they expect from other people as well.
So the action here is that, again, creating unique, original, honest, quirky, share-worthy content is what we're asking you to do. You can confirm that with Lauren and Lauren this month, but that's what we've done in our research. That's what we have found working with Gen Z on a couple of projects that we've done. Also asking you to give them a seat at the table, inviting them to be a part of your nonprofit, inviting them to even speak at your next fundraiser, depending on what your relationship is to them. And then in their words, I think this is a great tip, is asking a Gen Z donor or a volunteer to shoot a 30-second video about why they love and support you. It would take Chris and I like 17 takes because we don't really know how to hold the phone. And, Gen Z is going to bust this video out for you in one take, 30 seconds. There you go. You've got your video. Like, that's how quick and easy it is. And they're used to doing that all day, basically.
And we're always surprised how much they are willing to come to events and speak and talk and be a part of something. I think every time we put out a call for Gen Z volunteers, speakers, we've had an overwhelming response of people. And we've done that directly through schools, through nonprofits, through friend groups of our Gen Zer.
So quick little story is that we, right before COVID, we were preparing this similar presentation because we were chosen to speak at the Colorado Nonprofit Association. And so what they wanted was for us to have a panel of Gen Z, so they could really offer their feedback. It just wasn't a bunch of whatever we were, 47 at that time, telling about Gen Z. So I put out an email to a couple of our clients, Humane Society being one of the big ones. I knew they had a lot of teen volunteers. Obviously, if these kids are volunteers, maybe they would help us by volunteering. And I was overwhelmed with the amount of young people who responded. And I actually had to tell the Humane Society, could you please in your next newsletter say we're full, no more volunteer positions available. So again and again, I've been amazed at how this generation will help. If you ask for help and they believe in your cause, they'll step up.
And if you listen, if you're not just trying to solicit necessarily feedback, but if you let them be part of it.
So the other interesting thing is that you could think about creating something like a brand loyalty program. If you could kind of link their involvement to a specific outcome you're driving for, like $10 a month gives 20 meals for a food insecure family of 4. I think they really like to see, as we all do, the tangible, evidence of what your money is going to. And then pulling back the curtain, just showing the story behind the scenes. We learned a lot in one of the articles that we read about profiling a volunteer, showing how the work gets done. Maybe they would like to shadow this volunteer for a day. Again, it's that idea of, could you create a position where they could become a part of your organization? So they really knew what was happening behind the curtain.
And that's a little bit to get rid of that skepticism too, which is right. Don't just show me the shiny, show me behind the scenes. What is actually happening? Show me somebody in your office and what are they doing? It's okay if your desk is messy and it's okay if this stuff is happening. That makes me feel like you're authentic.
So what about TikTok? Full disclosure, I don't have a TikTok. Maybe I've seen TikTok and through Instagram, I don't know. But we read an article on bizjournals.com. The URL will be at the bottom of our deck when you receive that. But their tips were consider TikTok for your brand if you have a young target audience. Consider TikTok if your brand is highly visual. Consider it if quick tips are your go-to. Do you have quick tips that you're able to give, or is your story, more in depth? Maybe TikTok isn't right for you right now. You could consider it if you could benefit from influencer marketing. And then above all, you shouldn't be on TikTok simply to be on TikTok. We find that a lot of our clients have said, like, okay, well, we have to have Twitter, we have to have Facebook, we have to have Instagram, we have to have Snapchat. Now we have to have TikTok. That's a lot to manage for your team. And all of those platforms just might not be right. It's okay if you're not on everything. So, the article suggested that you analyze your audience, you assess your brand identity, and then just make a conscious decision if TikTok can help increase donations, awareness, or your brand's reach. If it doesn't, or if it doesn't right now, that's okay.
Yeah, and you can get creative. So certainly, when they're talking about being visual, just think, is it photo worthy, right? Is there something that you can take a photo of that is highly interesting, funny, impactful, whatever it is, right? Does it play well in a visual format? If it's something that doesn't, if it's just people sitting at a desk, you're going to have to get creative in terms of the way that works, right? So, or maybe again, it's just not the right channel.
We have a client right now, and I will not name names, but we're working on gathering photos for them to put into a little website redesign we're doing. And one of the photos, like literally in the background, it looks like a guy's like picking his nose. Is this the best photo you have to send us to put on your website? So just be conscious of what's going on in the background of photos and
Now, that could be funny,
videos.
right? This is where Gen Z would be like, hey, if you highlighted that with a caption, that's very TikTokable, right?
True.
If
That'd be
it's-
true.
But the caption I would use like, was it pick or scratch? You're not gonna get it.
Exactly. So, and this has always been
There's a
our
place for everything.
thing with social media is like, look, if it makes sense for you, and if you're the type of organization that can do it, great. We're still back to potentially get somebody from Gen Z to help you post or generate content, right? Don't try to necessarily generate it yourself if that's not going to come naturally. But being there, it's worse to be there and do a terrible job or never post or whatever, because then again, it seems like, okay, you're not authentic in what you're doing. This isn't real. You're just trying to chase down a line. But we get a lot of questions about that. So creators and consumers, whereas I think baby boomers, Gen Xers, we're consumers first, right? Mostly we consume content, we watch TV, we didn't make our own shows, right? We bought a lot of things, we didn't necessarily generate products. We went to work in an office, we didn't necessarily start our own business. Millennials, and then especially Gen Z, are creators as well as consumers. And if you think about it, right, they are content creators on a daily basis. Every time they update their social profiles, they are creating content, whether that's written, whether that's video, whatever they're doing, they are immediately becoming producers and photographers and writers and social impact people. Or in many cases, creating their own games, right? Minecraft, things like that. People are creating their own worlds, their own games. So they want to participate in the content, but they also want to create their content at the same time. Whether they would call it this or not, they're creating and curating their personal brands faster, more effectively than any other generation, because again, their profiles are basically a personal form of marketing and branding. Whether they understand that or not, they probably do, again, because they're pretty savvy, but they're able to create that, modify that, morph that very quickly. When we talked about entertainment before, they are typically funny, and they really want to be entertained, but also want to entertain at the same time. So the same thing, they're going to create just as many memes as they take in when they're looking out there. So they are motivated, and then I have friends with some help. right? So they are typically motivated, but they're also very forgetful and have a lot going on. So typically they are motivated to offer that ongoing support, but they need a nudge. And this is back where text can be helpful occasionally to just say, hey, we have something new going on or a new event on social or something happening. They need that nudge or they will forget and get busy. This is something we found was very interesting and didn't really think about, but they don't really know a world without monthly subscriptions, right? The rest of us write about, oh, all these little monthly subscriptions for Netflix and for this and for that. That's just the way they think the world works. It's just a lot of monthly subscriptions. So honestly, they are the best probably generation to give on a monthly basis because that's just how they think things work. Now, it may be a small level, right? $5, $10 a month. But over time, that's a lot as opposed to somebody saying, well, I give $100 once and then I forget about you forever. So it's a way to keep them involved and something that they, especially if they support it, they will keep giving. They do
We
have.
also, read about equating your donation to blank. You probably already have a Netflix subscription or you're, subscribing to blank, like the once a month.
Spotify premium or something.
Exactly. So equating that donation that you'd like them to give you to one of those monthly subscription packages that they're already paying for.
So something along the lines of, hey, you're already paying $10 a month for music, you pay $10 a month to make this impact in the world, right? Let them know that they can make a big impact for the same amount that they're already spending on something else. Because they have been marketed to, again, like I said, since the womb, they do have very high expectations in terms of what they see and take in. They have pretty good taste. So if things are poorly designed, if things are frustrating or take too long to figure out, or if the social media presence that we talked about is pretty bad, then they think that's a reflection on the brand. So again, they like things to be authentic and real, but they're also used to, there was a stat a couple of years ago that, and this is adults as well, but that most people now compare your website and your world to Starbucks, Airbnb, and Uber. That experience of being able to get in, get things personalized and move quickly. We know nonprofits don't have multi-million or billion-dollar budgets to do that, but that's kind of what they're used to. So always push and strive towards being like those brands, being able to make things simple, quick, effective, and well-designed where possible. They're super adaptable. So again, raised on technology, so they're willing to try out new technology, adopt and find power in new tools, new approaches, new ways of giving, new ways of rallying. They're completely fine with that. And we talked about that YouTube, they do see as an education channel. YouTube is in the top 3. It moves between 1 and 3 of the top most trusted and respected brands by Gen Z. So they really do see YouTube as the library, as the college, as the ways to connect, to have fun, to be entertained. It's all of those things. And they can figure out how to do just about anything they need with a card.
So the actions on this are to prioritize speed and efficiency, just like Chris said, just doing your best to make donation, 1 click, 2 clicks, 3 clicks. Find places for their creativity. Volunteering is built into Gen Z. They're really good, kind, caring people. Just make sure you have a wide range of volunteer opportunities for them. And then starting a conversation, just asking for their ideas, their input, and how they would like to make an impact on your nonprofit. I think they would like to offer those suggestions to you.
And those last 2 are tied hand in hand. So I think finding place for the creativity, right? This is that great. They've been putting together videos, they've been doing design or coding or other things that could be very helpful to your organization or that are around great diversity. How do we include LGBTQ people? How do we do these kind of things? Great. That's something they're interested in. They will help you go do that if you ask them to do that.
Make some merch. So, if you have the tools and the opportunity to create fun, unique, meaningful merchandise, and then they're able to purchase that merchandise for a kind of a low level donation, we think that would go over really well. It was our experience with Wildfire Tees. And again, it becomes like just kind of a badge, just kind of an honor to really help to represent the nonprofit that they're so passionate about.
If you need proof, go to Dutch Brothers on the 1st of the month when it's sticker day and look at the lines that go around. So merch like stickers, it seems crazy, but it's a big
Cheap to
deal.
print,
Let's see, we've had Claire get online and buy a Nick Cage pillow that move it when it's like Cage's face and you move it one way and it turns red and the other way and it reveals his face. I mean, like on a whim. I mean, so it's interesting, unique, weird things that, again, they're willing to drop the money on it.
I think I snuck in my comment about the simple subscription, so I won't run through that, but again, a really good idea. I know it's a lower donation than you would like to be getting, but we're growing philanthropists here, right? So if you can get them at $5, ideally they're going to be at $500, $5,000, $50,000. You never know.
So just to recap, again, first thing is online is where it all starts. So meet them online if possible. That's probably where they're going to learn about you. It's probably where they're going to make their first introductions. Be real, right? So real people, issues, and transparent. Be transparent. They're going to mobilize. So if you want to mobilize with them or help them mobilize, great, but they'll do it without you if you don't. Story. Always be telling the full story, and creating and consuming is part of what they want to do. So they don't want to just consume the information. They want to help create it as well. So some real world examples of brands who we think are getting it right. And again, this is a little bit outside of the box. There is one nonprofit example in here. But the first one is Claire's pick. So we asked Claire, hey, what's a brand that you admire? And Bungie is the brand that she most admires. And this is the one that she spent the 1,200 hours in video games. So Bungie is a video game company. They make a game currently called Destiny, but have made Halo and many other games that have been popular throughout the years. And so, you know, I mean, think, what do we have to learn from a video game company? I'm not making video games necessarily for what we're doing, but I think it's interesting that if you look at Bungie and you look a little bit more, they're actually creating community more than anything else. So you can see one of their links right up there is for community. And under that, they have a whole section for fan art. They have a whole section for different interests. So there is a trans community. There is different kind of things for being able to create that community. There's community for people that are modifying the game, doing different things, people that want to chat in different cities or different countries, or want to be able to find people to play with online as well. If you get into their employment, they really do talk a little bit too about their values, and sounds more like a social impact or nonprofit than anything else. So they talk about, for instance, under their number 5 here, widen your perspective, that everyone should feel welcome. So we work hard to recognize our unconscious biases, amplify underrepresented voices, question the status quo, and always assume the best of one another, right? So this idea of culture, this idea of inclusivity, and this idea of, even in the world of video games, how do we build that? They do have a foundation that they built dealing with entertainment for the Bungie Foundation. So they bring iPads into hospitals, into kids where they feel like entertainment and this idea of being distracted from pain and other problems can be a really big thing. And how do they get access to this entertainment and bring this idea of play and entertainment and creating and consuming to the world? So online, if you look at their online presence, this is from their Instagram and their Twitter and things that they're doing. So they have it for this first one, a differently abled person right here talking about how do you play that, right? Is somebody that's differently able to play this game, and it's his experience about this is what I can and can't do, and you know, how does the community listen to that? How do they build around that? So it's real profiles of real people. You know, they've released a whole kind of pack to be able to modify. Claire modifies the character within the game with kind of this, you know, transgender badges and different outfits and different things that she pays real money to be able to get and do over time. There's a little bit of an example of the fan art over there, and then they do a great job of partnering with things like Nerf, which was one of their first interests, about making products and things to help increase their reach and their impact. So this is what Claire said about them when we asked favorite brand. So it's deep and genuine care for the community. Unlike a lot of game studios, they post weekly updates addressing concerns, talking about what's coming next, and celebrating members of the community. They've also held events like Black Bungie, Transit Bungie, to celebrate members of their staff and community. They contribute a lot of money and time to charities. So this is definitely something that, again, at 19, I wish I could say I was this conscious of what brands were doing, why they were doing it, how they were doing it. I was just got my first Nintendo. Yeah, I had my first Nintendo and was jumping around with Mario, and yeah, drinking Mountain Dew with Twinkies and on my skateboard. But I definitely didn't have any sense of necessarily community around brands or what they're doing or what their impact on the world is. I didn't see that wasn't even a conversation. This is what Claire immediately said when we asked her. So the second brand out there is one that everybody does know, as opposed to Bungie, which is Nike. And I think the big takeaway from Nike, even though they are a massive brand, is that they are not afraid to take a stand, right? So love it or hate it, what they did with Colin Kaepernick here was a statement, and they weren't afraid to lose market value or people. They wanted people to know this is where we stand. We're going to put our stake in the ground. And for nonprofits, we think that's incredibly important. You can't blur those lines of like, well, we kind of stand for this, but not really. Make it clear, this is who we are, this is what we stand for, and this is what's important. And it can be obviously with big celebrity faces, but it can be being able to see a little bit of yourself in here too, right? Even if you're a skateboarder in the street, you don't have to change who you are to change the world, right? So making sure from a messaging standpoint, Nike really has it together to be able to say, how do I see myself in what you're doing? The Just Do It campaign from way back when is all about empowerment, right? It's all about how do I feel part of this brand? How are these shoes on my feet or what I'm wearing make me feel like I'm Michael Jordan or I'm part of this or I'm making this happen. In terms of representation, again, just looking at covering the demographic here, this is just from their homepage. So we have the traditional kind of volleyball girls on the left-hand side here, but then if we look at the photo next to it, right, we have different ethnicities, shapes, sizes, everything. So diversity doesn't just mean ethnic diversity. It is just diversity in how people look, act, everything else. Now, again, it's important to note that these are real people that wear Nikes, not just kind of a stock photo. They're going to smell right through that really quickly. Probably don't have time to show this video, but this is a video that's out there from 2020, early when the pandemic started, just about creating change and the importance of being able to do that. It's a couple minutes long. It's included in here. And it has some interesting editing techniques about just jumping back and forth between two kinds of things. But showing a lot of strength and diversity, showing a lot of strength and resilience and coming back. So pretty smart and pretty effective in terms of what they're doing. They've started a whole, if you look at their social media right now, sustainability is a big part of what they're posting. They have these kind of quirky, strange illustrations that they're doing, but really talking about their footprint, really talking about what's going into the ground and coming out and how they're re-examining that. And then this idea for the first time ever at Nike that minorities are the majority, not by a ton, but they've really worked hard again to make sure is the makeup of our company and what we're doing actually reflective of the people we're trying to serve and how that's a huge deal for what they're doing. So in terms of getting it right, what do we think they're doing to get it right? Well, they're taking a stand. We talked about that, especially on social justice issues, real representation of different people, different athletic levels, different interests. So pretty smart from that standpoint. And then they're not afraid to evolve with the playbook, right? So it isn't that they need to stick to the same formula. They're not afraid to change, apologize, fix things, do whatever they need to do to keep that playbook moving. So the last example, Jenny will talk about it.
I'm going to talk a little bit about a campaign we created with NAMI Colorado Springs, which we named Below the Surface. So the Below the Surface campaign happened because NAMI received a grant to help market a text line that had come out of, the funding had come out of the Aurora theater shooting. So Governor Bowles, I wonder, I don't know, I can't remember who the governor was at that time, but anyways, set up some grant money that needed to go out to help just help teens reach free mental health services. So with NAMI, and then because of the success of the campaign, several other Colorado crisis services and the Colorado Department of Human Services came on board with the campaign. But what we did with the campaign was we connected with our market. We brought in, again, the amazing part about Gen Z is that they will stand up when you ask for help. So we worked with a group of, it was probably 10 or 12 teens and from local high schools the first time around. The second campaign, we probably had maybe 6 or 8 teens on our panel. But what we did was work with them to create statements that they felt rang true to them to help market the crisis text line. So my life was full of pressure and expectations. Sometimes emptiness lies just below the surface. So what we were doing was taking their kind of emotion that they were showing externally, right? And then matching it with what they were feeling internally.
And they told us that too often the things that were marketed to them that they saw in schools were either overly negative. It was, look, I'm a kid in a sweatshirt with a hood and I'm,
In a corner.
in a corner and
Life's
things are
really
dark
dark.
and everything sucks. Or it was this overly puffy, positive, like everything's gonna be okay, you're so good. And what they said, just like we talked about in our presentation, is their world is much more complex than that. So we really, took exact phrases of them saying, hey, this is externally what I will say to my friends on social media, but right below that, there's another thought or something else that's there. And we tested all of these messages with them to say, is this something that feels real to you?
So just a few other posters that we created. We worked really hard to get these into every high school and some middle schools in El Paso County, and we're pretty successful in doing that. This is the website. We created it to be mobile first. We knew quite certainly that most of the teens would be viewing the site on their phones. So we kept it very simple. It was easy to use, easy to view on a phone. What we did to get this right, we think, is that it was teen tested and teen approved. The youth advisory panel was put together to talk through their experiences, their likes, their dislikes, and how they wanted to be heard. We worked to make sure it was real, but also optimistic. They wanted a campaign to feel generally positive, but still speaking honestly about the true pain that so many teens experience. One part of the panel, it was really tough because there had been a lot of suicides in the high schools around the time that we had created this campaign. And one of the kids on the panel had lost a friend, his best friend. So it was really, tough and amazing to have real conversations with these kids and just work through the pain that they had felt and, what we could do to try to make sure that, kids who were feeling suicidal or just even feeling like they had a bad day at school had somebody to connect with.
And I think we really worked hard to let them own this. So part of it was, there were some schools that were very resistant to some of this messaging. Well, parents aren't gonna like this. Or one of the schools in the Southeast Colorado Springs was about deportation, because that's what was real, that's what was happening. And, they were we had to keep telling schools and people that the importance of keeping this authentic for the kids is more important than the politics of your school. And if you don't want it in your school, then you don't have to have it. That's okay. Now, once the majority of schools started getting on board, some of those schools changed their minds, but we
still did have to change messages for some schools. It became, less impactful, we thought, but we felt like getting a portion of the message into the school was better than not having the message at all. But yeah, it was really tough to navigate school politics versus what the teens in these particular schools really felt like they needed to see.
Well, an adults wanting to say, this is what we think they should hear, versus saying, well, this is what the kids are telling us. This is what is their real world. Now, we did work with health professionals to make sure, right, we're not doing anything harmful or anything like that, but it was very much something that we wanted them to feel involved. We let them be empowered. We let them take, some of them ask for it. Can I get business cards printed? Can I get things that we can hand out at rallies? Can I make this my own thing? And our thing is, of course you can. This is yours. Make it your own.
One other message on this was that, and we've talked about this already, but in real life, I really saw that our youth advisory panel was very aware of the other kids in their school for the LGBTQ community. They really wanted to make sure that we had messages that spoke to them. It just really shows that the diversity and inclusion that they are really searching for.
So all the sources that we pulled from are in here, right? A lot of this is our experience, but the sources are in here. If you want to go read, there's articles that have tons of other tips, resources, statistics, everything else around Gen Z and what activates them. We did want to try to leave a little bit of time here for questions and hopefully.
Thank you for your time as well.
Yeah, we appreciate it. So any questions for us?
You mentioned a lot of testing messages. Is that really just as simple as comparing which messages get more interactions, likes, views, and shares, and that kind of thing? Or is there more of an equation to test it and figure it out?
No, I would say testing is exactly what you said, it's testing. So I mean, I think, you want to be cautious not to just throw anything and everything out there. I mean, hopefully, again, you talk to some Gen Z about like, wow, okay, our organization seems to overlap and have interest in these areas where we think Gen Z might be interested. But then it's literally, yeah, just a bunch of variations on photos or headlines or things and see what resonates, which things are getting the comments, the likes. The engagement. Shares is a great one, right? That's, I think sometimes likes are okay depending on where they're at, but I think anybody who is actually going to share or comment is an even bigger deal on something. And once again, most of the social media platforms have ways to tell you that, but that's
And Lauren Hug, at the end of September, will have some really good information for you all on that.
yes, and I hate to say it, but social platforms have become pay to play. So it is, if you want to get seen, spending some money is going to be much better bang, a much better use of time than just trying to do organic social posts. You can do that, but they've really limited the amount of reach and what happens around those kind of things. Now, several of them do offer programs. Google offers a nonprofit program. A lot of them offer free or highly discounted things for nonprofits to be able to put information out there. But once again, when you're putting things out there in a paid platform, that's the great news is I can literally make 30 different posts that are the only thing that's different is the message. And there's tools like Canva that allow you to do that very easily and without having a bunch of knowledge of like graphic design tools. And then you can upload those all in the system and Facebook will, or whatever platform will serve them up on its own and then start to tell you which ones are working, which ones are not. So it doesn't cost more to do more messages necessarily. So that's something that's different than old marketing. If you were just going to put something and add out, you have one track, right? In this case, it's great. Put a variety out there, see what's working, and then take that data and enhance that. And then I would say also pull that back to other platforms. So great, if a message works one place, start to use that in other channels as well, not just on social.
I've never heard of Gen Z, so that's, maybe I've seen it, but never knew there was a title to it.
Yeah.
So.
I think Gen Z is going to save the world. So I just am really inspired about how inclusive and caring and just kind of kick-ass people they are.
In the beginning there, I could see my son.
How old is your son?
He's 25.
Oh, well, there you have it. Yeah,
He moved to Utah by himself, and he's like, going to school online, Florida State, and living there, working, and he's like having a field day. But like, as I'm reading, like, he doesn't do social media though. Like, he's like, I don't need feeling of that.
Yeah.
But he's a YouTuber. He's always like, yeah, we do a lot of YouTube stuff.
Yeah. And I think you'll find that a lot of Gen Z is dropping off some of those more
Even
typical
like when
social.
this is, in high school, it was like, I didn't need a Facebook account. Like, he asked, can I get one? And he said, it's done. I don't need it now. So,
Yeah.
maybe 6 months.
Yeah, and that's why TikTok is TikToks, only one help. TikTok and Snapchat and other things have come and gone. You've seen new platforms start to go. There's another one out there called Reel. Can't remember what it is, but it's basically a platform like Instagram,
Yeah.
but it's only
Reels.
real stuff. I mean, again, if it
That's
looks to,
Instagram and TikTok kind of going together,
Yeah.
but yeah, the little movies thing. It's like a 5-minute thing. It's kind of like the older version of YouTube when their YouTube videos were like 8 minutes.
Thank goodness you're here.
but that's part of it, right? Is they are, if something's dumb, they're like, well, that's okay. We need something new, right? They're not afraid to switch. Except where we're like, oh, I'm just trying to finally figure out how Facebook works. So why would
Well,
I? have
all of
8
my
minutes?
passwords are also connected to your Facebook, so Anybody else? Awesome.
Any questions online, Tim? I don't know if questions come in. No, okay, great.
Hi, Emma.
Okay.
Thank you for your time again.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I know you're no longer connected to, so what is the visibility we're going to get through other than the website and the potential box?